Michael Turner was 39 years old when people started calling him a failure. Not directly. People rarely say the cruelest things to your face. They said it with their eyes. With their silence. With the way they changed the subject when he talked about his dreams. With the way his relatives asked, "So, what are you doing now?" As if they already knew the answer would disappoint them. Michael had tried almost everything. He tried starting a small business. It failed. He tried selling handmade furniture online. Nobody bought it. He tried working in sales. He was terrible at it. He tried investing his savings into a food truck. The truck broke down after 3 months, and the debt stayed for years. Every attempt ended the same way. A little hope. A lot of effort. Then disappointment. By the time he turned 39, Michael was working nights in a warehouse, stacking boxes while younger men around him talked about promotions, houses, vacations, and futures. Michael didn't talk much. He just worked. Went home. Slept badly. Woke up tired. And started again. One evening, during a family dinner, his younger brother asked him a question. "So, are you still trying to start another business?" The table went quiet. Michael looked down at his plate. There was no cruelty in the question. That made it worse. His brother wasn't mocking him. He was tired of watching him fail. Michael forced a smile. "No," he said. "I think I'm done." His mother looked sad. His father looked relieved. And that hurt more than anything. Because when people stop believing in your dream, it hurts. But when they are relieved that you stopped believing too, something breaks inside you. That night, Michael sat alone in his apartment. The room was dark except for the weak light from the kitchen. On the table were unpaid bills, an empty coffee cup, and a notebook full of old business ideas. He opened the notebook and flipped through the pages. Every page felt like a grave. Ideas he had loved. Plans he had made. Versions of himself he had almost become. Then he closed the notebook and whispered, "Maybe they're right." The next morning, he almost threw the notebook away. But before he did, a small piece of paper fell from the back cover. It was a receipt from an old hardware store. On the back, written in his own handwriting from years earlier, were 5 words. One more try. No excuses. Michael stared at the sentence for a long time. He didn't feel inspired. He didn't feel brave. He felt tired. Angry. Embarrassed. Too old to start again. Too exhausted to believe again. But something about those 5 words bothered him. One more try. Not a perfect try. Not a guaranteed try. Just one more. That day at work, Michael couldn't stop thinking about it. During his break, he sat behind the warehouse with his phone in his hand and searched for small businesses people could start with almost no money. Most ideas were unrealistic. Some sounded fake. Some required skills he didn't have. Then he saw a video about restoring old furniture. Not building new furniture. Restoring forgotten pieces. Old chairs. Broken tables. Scratched cabinets. Things people threw away because they couldn't see their value anymore. Michael stared at the screen. For the first time in months, something inside him moved. Not excitement. Not confidence. Just a small spark of curiosity. After work, he drove through the neighborhood and found an old wooden chair left beside a trash bin. One leg was loose. The paint was cracked. The seat was scratched. Most people would have seen garbage. Michael saw practice. He brought it home. That night, he cleaned it, sanded it, repaired the leg, and painted it a deep dark brown. It wasn't perfect. But it was better. The next day, he posted it online for $30. Nobody bought it. He laughed bitterly. Of course. But this time, something was different. He didn't feel destroyed. Because it had cost him almost nothing. So he found another chair. Then a small table. Then an old mirror. He repaired each one after work. Some sold. Most didn't. But slowly, he improved. He learned which colors people liked. Which photos looked better. Which descriptions worked. Which items were worth his time. For 6 months, nothing dramatic happened. No viral moment. No big success. No miracle. Just small sales. Small lessons. Small improvements. Then one Saturday morning, a woman came to pick up a restored coffee table. She looked at it and smiled. "This is beautiful," she said. Michael almost didn't know how to respond. He had heard criticism for so long that praise felt unfamiliar. "Thank you," he said quietly. The woman looked around his small garage workshop. "Do you take custom orders?" Michael paused. He wanted to say no. He wanted to protect himself from disappointment. But then he remembered the receipt. One more try. So he said, yes. That one custom order became 3. 3 became 10. 10 became a waiting list. People began recommending him. Not because he was the cheapest. But because every piece he restored felt alive again. He didn't just repair furniture. He gave forgotten things a second chance. And maybe that was why he loved it so much. Because deep down, he was restoring himself too. A year later, Michael quit the warehouse. Not dramatically. Not with revenge. Not to prove everyone wrong. He simply handed in his notice, thanked his manager, and walked out into the sunlight. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was escaping failure. He felt like he was walking toward something. His family didn't understand at first. They were cautious. Worried. Afraid he would fail again. And honestly, Michael was afraid too. But fear no longer controlled him. Because he had learned something important. Confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes after you survive action. After you try. After you fail. After you get up. After you realize failure didn't kill you. One evening, almost 2 years after that family dinner, Michael opened his own small workshop. Nothing fancy. A rented space on a quiet street. A wooden sign above the door. Inside were old tools, half-finished chairs, shelves of paint, and the smell of sawdust. His mother came to the opening. So did his father. His brother walked in last. For a while, he looked around without saying anything. Then he stopped in front of a restored table. "This is really good," he said. Michael smiled. "Thanks." His brother looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not believing." Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "It's okay. I didn't believe either." His brother looked at him. Michael continued. That was the real problem. Years passed. Michael's business grew slowly. Not into a giant company. Not into a story about becoming rich overnight. But into something steady. Honest. Meaningful. He trained young people who had been told they were lazy, difficult, or not good enough. He hired people who needed second chances. And every time someone brought in a broken chair, a cracked table, or a scratched cabinet, Michael smiled. Because he knew better than anyone. Broken does not mean worthless. Old does not mean finished. Failed does not mean impossible. One day, a young man came into the workshop asking for a job. He was 22. Nervous. eyes full of shame. I don't have much experience, the young man said. Michael nodded. That's okay. I've messed up a lot. Michael smiled. Me too. The young man looked surprised. Michael handed him a piece of sandpaper and pointed to an old chair in the corner. Start with that. The young man looked at the chair. It looks ruined. Michael placed a hand on his shoulder. Most things do before someone decides they're worth the work. The young man nodded slowly. And for a moment, Michael saw himself. The tired man in the dark apartment. The unpaid bills. The old notebook. The sentence on the receipt. One more try. No excuses. That evening, after closing the workshop, Michael sat alone near the door. Sunlight poured through the windows. Dust floated in the air. The place was quiet. Peaceful. Real. He thought about all the times he had failed. All the embarrassment. All the judgment. All the nights he wanted to quit. And suddenly, he understood something. Maybe he had not failed 100 times. Maybe he had trained 100 times. Maybe every wrong turn had taught him something. Maybe every loss had removed something he didn't need. Maybe every failure had been quietly shaping the man who could finally build this life. Michael looked around the workshop and smiled. People often think success is one big moment. A lucky break. A perfect opportunity. A dramatic victory. But most success is quieter than that. It is one more attempt after embarrassment. One more step after rejection. One more morning when you wake up tired and still decide not to quit. Michael never became famous. Most people never heard his name. But every day, he opened the door to a life he had built with his own hands. And that was enough. Because the truth is, life does not ask whether you failed before. Life asks whether you are willing to try again. And sometimes the version of you that finally succeeds is built from all the versions of you that refuse to give up.